Okay, now we move to our next topic, which is labor cost. Alright, labor cost is actually how suppose we calculate for the wages in order to pay for our workers. Alright, now we move on to the next slide. Alright, so what is the definition of a labor cost? So definition here is actually labor cost is remuneration that paid to the workers for work that they do either directly to the production or other than production. So it's actually pay for those who work with us in the production department or not in production department. So we can divide it into two types, which is direct labor and indirect labor. So direct labor and indirect labor we already covered in our first topic previously. Alright, so comes again, we have to go through just to make sure that we are still alert what is direct labor. So direct labor is actually workers who work directly related to the production or the person who really produced the product. Right, so what they are working on, they are working on directly to convert raw material into finished good, such as what? Such as a wood cutter, table assembler, but this one in the furniture business. So in whatever company, what they do is actually they produce for the product. Alright, next, what is indirect labor? So indirect labor is actually people who were not directly into the production, but then they still contribute for completion of the product. Alright, such as what here? Alright, they do not involve directly, okay, not involved directly, but then here, not directly, yeah, not involved directly, but their service is needed to ensure that the production process runs smoothly. So they do not produce a product, but it's actually they help to make sure that production is going on, such as supervisor, production manager, or maintenance staff, and so on. Okay, so now we move on to the other slide. Okay, alright, so here the first thing that we have to understand before we calculate the salary is actually labor turnover. So what is labor turnover? We have to see whether the person comes into the company and go out from the company. So we would like to see if the labor turnover is high in a company, this is not good. Alright, but if the labor turnover of a company, so the company is really good. Why do I say so? Because no one would like to leave the company. For example, if one of you work in a company that normally will give you 12 months bonus, of course you don't want to leave the company, right? So it falls under this category. But if some sort like other people would like to leave the company and they would like to replace easily, it shows that the labor turnover is very high. So this is not a really good company. So how to measure labor turnover is actually we measure how many times worker leave from the firm and need to be replaced. So we have to calculate how many persons go out from the company and has been replaced. So alright, so labor turnover rate must desirable low, just like what I said, the lower is better. Alright, because it will reduce the labor cost. Alright, how to measure this one? So the labor turnover rate, the formula is actually average number of employees leave and then plus with the need to be replaced, number of persons or employees need to be replaced, and then we divide it by number of employees at the beginning and then and also number of employees at the end of the period. So we have to take the average here and also this one also average, and then you have to times with 100%. Alright, next we move on to next slide, which is labor turnover cost. So labor turnover cost, it means that when the company is, the labor turnover is very high, so the labor turnover cost also is going to be very high. So what is actually the cost that the company is going to face? Number one is actually living cost. So what is living cost? For example, you have to do the interviews, preparation and documentation, and then you're going to delay in your production. Because of what reason? Because when they leave your company, so you need for replacement. Alright, next one, what about the replacement cost? In order to get new workers, you have to advertise, you have to select, and then you have to do so many things in the documentation in the human resource department. Alright, when the new staff coming in, of course you need to have a training course, because majority of them, they do not know what is actually your company is doing. Alright, the cost, it could be internal and also it could be external. And then what will another cost that you have to bear in? Learning cost, because when the new workers coming in, they are going to be slower in the initial production. Alright, and also they will increase scrap, because at the beginning they really don't have the skill how to do the job that in your company. Alright, next we move on the reasons for labor turnover. So this is the reason why they would like to leave the company. Alright, number one is voluntary. It means that they are not forced to leave the company. Alright, so this is the volunteer from them. Number one, because of they are not satisfied with the job. Alright, for example, they are not satisfied with the payment because of the hours work. Maybe they have to work more than what the human, for example, they have to work 12 hours instead of 8 hours, right? And then their payment also is low compared with other company. Alright, number two is actually the personality clash. So here they ask you to do something which is not according to your personality. For example, for a person who asks to work in a really high risk job, so actually they don't want to do that one. Alright, for example, persons like a woman, they don't want to have sometimes they don't want like to have in a risky job. What else? For example, another one is marriage. Alright, once they get married, they want to follow the husband and so on. Alright, once a woman they got pregnancy, some sort like they have a soul morning sickness and so on, right? And then they move from locality. For example, they move from one place to the other place. Of course, they need to quit the job, right? Because in some other area they don't have the other branches for they to work with the same company. Alright, last one is for the personal advancement. In order to gain more experience, they have to leave the company for a better prospect. Alright, this one, next one is for the involuntary. So reason, for example, you are forced to. Alright, number one is redundancy. For example, we have two person doing the same thing, is actually they only pay for one, so the other one they want you to leave the company. Alright, the other one is the retirement. It's time for you to retire, then you have to go. And then the third one is the health reason. So you're not healthy enough to continue as a workers. And next one is the disciplinary reason, some sort like you came late to office and so on. Alright, next one is you are lacking of the ability. You are not able to do that kind of the work which the company asks you to do. Alright, so we finish here for a while.